You know, sometimes the most powerful stories weren't shouted, they're almost whispered, written in secret under conditions that are just, well, hard to wrap your head around.
Definitely. And today we're diving into one of those. It's Kizito Mihigo's book, Rwanda Embracing Reconciliation.
Exactly. And what makes this particular deep dive so fascinating for you listening is where this book came from. The sources you shared paint this incredible picture, not just of the words, but the journey they took.
hmm It's quite something. The context is just as powerful as the content itself.
So our mission today really is to unpack this whole thing. How on earth was this book written, in secret? What hurdles did it face? And crucially, what are these core ideas about reconciliation in it that seem to cause such friction with the authorities?
Right. We'll be looking at how Kizito Mihigo actually wrote it while he was in prison, using a hidden mobile phone, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we'll touch on his connection with his friend, Rene Ritzie. He was really key in getting it published after Kizito died, and he wrote the preface too.
And then the message itself, Kizito's ideas on reconciliation. Powerful stuff, but clearly controversial for some.
Definitely. That's the heart of it.
Okay, so let's start with that secret writing process. I mean, being locked up in Kigali's central prison and still managing to write a book, how did he even do it? What was pushing him?
It's really a story of incredible ingenuity and just sheer determination. The sources say that for about 2 years, Kizito had access to a mobile phone inside the prison.
A mobile phone. How?
Well, apparently it wasn't unique. The material mentions some prisoners actually had these devices, maybe smuggled in,
Yep.
and they'd even rent them out to others.
Rent them out. So like a little underground library, but for phones?
Kind of, yeah. It suggests this hidden sort of clandestine network was operating, allowing some level of connection, a risky connection, obviously.
Absolutely. The risk must have been huge. So his reasons for writing, they must have been incredibly strong to outweigh that danger.
Oh, absolutely. It seems like there were a few layers to it. First, he wanted people to know about his work, his Peace Foundation, before he was imprisoned, and understand the sort of political complexities that led to him being there.
So setting the record straight about his past work.
Yes, but more than that, it was about his legacy. He was deeply committed to peace, unity, reconciliation, and he was afraid. Afraid that if he didn't tell his own story, the authorities would twist his ideas, maybe tarnish his name, especially among his followers.
Right. So it wasn't just, here's what happened to me in prison. It was, here's what I truly stand for, to counter any potential spin.
Exactly. He wanted to draw a clear line connecting his deeply held beliefs about reconciliation to his opposition to how the government was handling it. He felt the official strategy was flawed.
Flawed how?
The preface puts it quite starkly. It says he suspected the Rwandan government intended to harm the wider Rwandan communities instead of charting effective pathways leading to true reconciliation. That's heavy charge.
Written under those circumstances.
Yeah.
That takes courage. And didn't the preface also mention he started fearing for his life? Did that add pressure?
Immense pressure.
Yeah.
It apparently created this real sense of urgency. He felt like he was in a race against time. He had to speed up the writing, get it all down, make sure his message, his truth would survive, even if he didn't.
Wow.
There's a quote in the preface that just hits you. It says, by so doing, it was for him the only way he could deny his hangman the right to have the last word on his life.
That's chilling, but it shows his incredible commitment, doesn't it, to get that message out no matter what.
Absolutely. It speaks volumes.
Okay, let's shift to his connection with Rene Mugenzi. This seems like such a crucial link in the chain. How did they connect, and how did Rene end up publishing the book after Kizito's death, which was February 17th, 2020, right?
Yes, that's the date mentioned regarding his death.
Yeah.
And their connection, it's another remarkable part of the story. It started June 8th, 2016. Kizito reached out to Rene on Facebook, but using a fake name, an alias.
Cautious approach.
Very. The first message was basically thanking Rene for his work in publicizing Kizito's situation, his abduction, detention, imprisonment. So Rene was already out there speaking about it.
So Rene was already an ally, in a sense, even before direct contact.
It seems that way. And interestingly, Kizito didn't immediately reveal himself. He first pretended to be just a member of Kizito's Peace Foundation, the KMP. Said he was visiting Kizito in prison often and passing on information.
Okay, testing the waters. Smart. How did Rene react?
Rene responded really positively, praised the visits, talked about how inspiring Kizito was for reconciliation work.
So he passed the test, so to speak. How did Kizito finally reveal himself?
Well, this foundation member then asked Rene for a phone call, saying they had an important message directly from Kizito. And it was during that phone call that Kizito finally said, "It's me."
Must have been quite a moment.
You'd imagine so. He apparently told Rene he was certain he could trust him with his story, with the manuscript he was writing. It became this vital, secret link.
A lifeline. And Rene clearly honored that trust, publishing the book after Kizito died. That preface we keep mentioning, Rene wrote that, providing all this context for you, the listener, holding the book.
That's right. Rene Bugenzi authored the preface. It lays out the whole backstory, how it was written, why, the circumstances. And yes, it directly addresses the reader, you holding this powerful testament, emphasizing that it exists thanks to Rene fulfilling his promise to his friend.
It's a story within the story, really. The secret writing, the cautious contact, the friend ensuring the voice wasn't lost. Okay, let's get to the core now. Kizito's actual teachings on reconciliation. What was he saying that might have been so problematic for the authorities?
His ideas were deeply personal, stemming from his own experiences as a genocide survivor. He talked about healing by reaching out to Hutu boys he knew, reconnecting with childhood friends. He strongly believed people shouldn't be judged guilty just because their relatives were involved. That presumption of innocence was key.
So a very human, individual approach.
Very. And he took it further. He believed survivors had a crucial role, maybe the crucial role, in driving reconciliation forward. He even suggested it might be the only ultimate tool likely to reassure and humanize the killers. That's a radical level of empathy he was advocating.
That idea alone, survivors as active agents, not just defined by victimhood, that could definitely rub up against a state narrative focused perhaps more on collective memory or justice, right?
It could, yes. He saw victims as having agency in the healing process. His foundation, the Kizito Mihigo for Peace Foundation, was meant to use art, especially music, for this very purpose, bridging divides. He even took these ideas into prisons, working on reconciliation activities with both victims and perpetrators side by side.
Wow. And his song Dove is mentioned too.
Yeah, as a symbol of that message, shared life, shared faith, moving beyond division. But you're right, this constant emphasis on unity, transcending those ethnic lines, perhaps that was seen as subtly undermining the specific post-genocide identity the government was trying to foster.
And what about forgiveness? How did that fit in?
He saw forgiveness as like a blessing from God, but one that needed active human will to happen. It was essential, in his view. Again, while he wasn't against justice, this focus on the personal, relational aspect of forgiveness might have seemed to some like it was downplaying the formal justice mechanisms, which were central to the official narrative.
And there was his critique of the Rwanda program. Our sources don't fully define it, but what was his issue?
Right. We lack the full definition from these sources, but Kizito apparently argued that identifying as I am human should come before identifying as I am Rwandan, Rwanda. He felt that prioritizing shared humanity would foster broader compassion.
That's a significant philosophical difference, isn't it? Putting universal humanity above national identity in the context of post-conflict nation building.
It is, and it could certainly be seen as challenging a program aimed at forging a specific, unified Rwandan identity after the devastation.
And then the Reconciliation Memorial Shrine he proposed, commemorating all victims regardless of ethnicity. That sounds potentially controversial too.
It likely was. His vision for a shrine remembering all victims of the various atrocities in Rwanda's history, irrespective of ethnicity, might have clashed with the official commemoration efforts, which understandably place a strong focus on the Tutsi victims of the 1994 genocide. Suggesting an equivalence, even in remembrance, can be highly sensitive.
So it comes back to that inclusivity again.
Exactly. The preface is explicit here, too, mentioning his opposition to the flawed and evil way he felt the leadership was managing reconciliation, suspecting it harmed communities rather than healed them. He seemed to be advocating for a much broader, perhaps less politically controlled, form of reconciliation.
It really paints a picture of someone deeply principled, whose vision, born from trauma but focused on a very encompassing peace, just didn't align with the official path being laid out. You can see why his message might have felt unwelcome, maybe even threatening to the status quo.
Indeed. That focus on individual hearts changing, on human connection across divides, on forgiving and on remembering everyone who suffered, it's a powerful message, but perhaps a destabilizing one from the perspective of a government trying to manage a complex post-conflict situation with a specific narrative. His voice, especially coming from prison, carried weight.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what an incredible journey for a book. We've talked about the sheer audacity of writing it secretly, in prison, on a hidden phone.
The sheer will involved.
We've highlighted Rene Mugenzi's absolutely vital role, the trusted friend who ensured Kizito's voice wasn't silenced after his tragic death on February 17th, 2020, getting the book out there, writing that crucial preface.
A testament to friendship and commitment.
And we've really dug into the heart of it, Kizito's challenging, deeply personal teachings on reconciliation, his call for survivors to lead, for universal humanity over specific identities, for inclusive remembrance, ideas that, while profoundly humane, clearly bumped up against the official approach.
So now you, listening, have a much richer sense of what's inside Rwanda embracing reconciliation. It's not just words on a page. It's the bravery of the author, the loyalty of his friend, and this enduring, challenging message itself.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About the power one voice can have, even from the deepest confinement. Kizito Mihigo, facing unimaginable pressure, ultimately losing his life, still managed to leave this indelible mark on the conversation about peace.
Yeah.
So the question for you to ponder is, what does his story tell us about the risks, but also the absolute necessity of voices like his, especially when things are difficult? And how might his vision, his specific ideas about reconciliation still resonate or challenge us today?
That's really something to reflect on. Maybe this deep dive inspires you to seek out the book itself, to engage directly with Kizito Mihigo's legacy and the complex, vital questions he raised about finding a path to true reconciliation.